Good afternoon and welcome to the 2021 Early On TUG Connects 365 webinar today. I'm Gloria Nelson, your host with TUG. And as you settle in and get ready at the start of today's webinar, let me give a brief introduction for TUG, the usergroup.org, for both our current members and those of you who represent organizations that have not yet joined our online community of Infor distribution software users. We've all heard that phrase that knowledge is power, and I can say with confidence that after today's presentation, you'll be waking up tomorrow with a little more of both. But this is only one of many presentations we provide throughout the year. TUG webinars, online forums, and member events facilitate the timely exchange of ideas and information to help you work smarter and with more confidence. Now that's a powerful combination. If you're currently a member, it pays to get even more involved. And if you're not, visit our website to discover why 2,300 heads are better than one to help you be the best at what you do each day. It's my pleasure to also let you know that today's content is going to be with permissions for intellectual property. You can go ahead and capture screenshots if you like, as well as cut and paste any pertinent chat that you feel will be beneficial to your job. So now it is my pleasure to welcome both John Sefton and Courtney Kubica with Phocas as they share how to modernize your finance department to maximize performance in 2021. Go ahead and take it away. Have you on my sight line, Courtney?
Great. Thanks, Gloria. And thank you all for joining us today for our webinar, Modernize Your Finance Department to Maximize Performance in 2021. If 2020 taught us anything, I think it's that we've all learned that we need to be a bit flexible this year. This past year, our strategies were derailed, budgets were shifted, and you likely found yourself having to adjust and pivot a lot of your financial plans. And while this year we're certainly hoping for more certainty and less disruption, one thing is clear, that the finance department of the past isn't able to adapt to the rapid change that we're seeing in the future. And so that need to be able to react more quickly and provide teams with financial data that they need to make stronger, more data-driven decisions is greater than ever. And so this year, today, we want to show you how you can modernize your finance department and maximize performance for the 2021 and beyond. So I'm Courtney Kubica, and I'm on the marketing team here at Phocas. And joining me today is also our expert solution consultant, John Sefton. Before we dive in, I'd like to launch a poll to understand how familiar you are with Phocas software. So Gloria, if we could go ahead and launch this. Phocas has been a part of the TUG community for quite some time, and we've been working with a lot of Infor customers. And so you may have seen our, oh, Gloria, it looks like we have the wrong question up. I'm seeing the financial reports generated in your business today. Perfect. So we want to see if you've seen Phocas before. We've shown the Phocas Business Intelligence Solution, which is an easy data analytics solution that works great with the Infor ERP. But we've shown it a lot to Infor customers, and we have quite a few that are using it. And so we're going to show you today a new module that will help bring your finance team into the business intelligence realm. And so we want to understand, have you seen Phocas, yes or no? And that'll help to drive our demo that John will be doing today and showing you the solution. So we really want to make sure that you answer this question to help drive the demo to make sure we're giving you the best content that we can today. So we'll leave it up for just a couple of more seconds. You could go ahead and answer that yes or no real quick, and then we'll close it out and share the results to see how many of you have seen our business intelligence solution just yet. So one thing about Phocas's business intelligence solution, we're waiting to close that out, is that it has a really great ease of use. And so it enables users across all areas of the business to be able to drill down, customize, build reports, dashboards, and really empowers users with data-driven decisions from all areas of the business. So not just seeing the finance side, but also seeing all areas from sales to inventory and all around, just to be able to get a great holistic view of the business. So Gloria, whenever you're ready, we can go ahead and close down that poll question. Oh, great. So it looks like about a 50-50 split, John. So we are looking at 57% have seen Phocas before and 43% have not seen Phocas. And so a great split there. We're excited to have some new people here and also some people that have seen our business intelligence solution and have seen the inner workings and the power that it can bring to a business. So I'll go ahead and close that out and dive into our presentation. So for today's agenda, we're going to be talking a lot about traditional financial reporting and how the modern approach to financial reporting that you'll see with business intelligence can really transform what you're doing in your business. In addition to financial reporting and financial analysis, we're going to look at how you can modernize your budgeting and forecasting approach as well to be more streamlined, more collaborative. If you have questions throughout today's webinar, notice on your screen, you'll see a Q&A bubble as well as a chat. The Q&A bubble is the perfect place to drop in those questions that you may have throughout, and John and I would be happy to answer them throughout the session. If you like a question, it'll actually hit it to the top, and it'll allow us to see that question and answer it more quickly. In addition to that, we always monitor the chat, so go ahead and use that to talk amongst yourself and keep the conversation going throughout today's presentation. So now we'll take a look at traditional financial reporting. To set the scene, before we get started, I'd like to launch one more quick poll that you saw there for a second to get a better understanding on what you're using for your financial reporting today. And so Gloria, let's go ahead and launch that one last poll really quickly before we dive into our content. I'd love to know how you're generating financial reports in your business. We're going to talk today a lot about traditional financial reporting and how businesses may be using Excel or the ERP or other tools to be able to both use financial reporting and budgeting and forecasting in their business. So this helps give us another great insight into how you're doing that today in your business. So we'll give it a few more seconds there just to round that out if you want to go ahead and answer that question. And then we'll close that poll down so we can go ahead and share the results with you to see what other peers in your community are using for financial reporting. Great, so it looks like quite a mixture. I'm not surprised. I definitely anticipated there being a large mix of Excel and the ERP, a little bit with a third-party tool as well. So it gives me a great insight into how, and John as well, how we can tailor this presentation so that you're able to understand how financial statements and a business intelligence tool can help your business. Great, so I'll close that out and dive right in. So the traditional financial reporting, especially for those of you that are using your ERP and your Excel, it really traditionally looks like this. So most financial reporting, the transactions are entered into the ERP or their accounting system. Standardized statements are created for various managers across your business, and then they're sent out to those decision makers. So under this approach, which kind of goes with, it's more of a top-down method, the department heads will likely have questions, of course, as we all do once we see reports in our hands and start to investigate the numbers. And so those questions will go back up to your finance team, and then they have to do the investigation, generate static reports. If you're experiencing this in your business and you're thinking, yes, this is definitely what happens for us, the feedback loop is slow, it really bogs down my finance team, it's a drain on our resources. And even worse, we often see that under this method, there's some complacency across other decision makers or department heads because it's hard for them to get a clear response and visibility into the finances of the business. And so I'm sure many of you can relate to this and how that operates. So what we're going to show you today is a more modern approach. So it takes really a holistic look at financial reporting and really makes it more dynamic and more collaborative. And so what we're looking here in this more modern approach is one that allows your finance team to adapt more quickly, to provide team members all of the access to the data they need when they need it, and allow them to drill into it a bit more so they can actually answer the questions they have on the fly, on their own, and really take ownership of that financial information. So in this approach, the way that we're actually analyzing the data is what is different. So your finance team sits at the center of the data with full control over your ERP and the information. And then those on the outer edge are seeing in real time a customized view that is completely secure and tailored just to them. And they're able to really dig into those numbers quite a bit more. And so this really allows your business to improve the performance because you're giving greater visibility across the numbers to everybody and not just keeping it isolated into one department. And so with this approach, the finance team quickly builds those financial statements. They customize the user's access. And then, for example, a branch manager can see the financial information that is specific to their branch, or executive management can see overall to the whole business, the financials. So whether I'm in purchasing or buying or IT, sales, logistics, marketing, I'm seeing an interactive view and performance from my view. And then when I have that dashboard and that view, I can start to drill down into those transactions myself. And I can really look and see what trends, what opportunities, how can I improve the financials of this business, and really start to take more ownership of that. So a few business benefits before we dive into the demo, just to highlight what a modern approach to budget or to financial statements can do for your business. It gives you incredible time savings for your finance team. It really helps to reduce the demand that you're seeing, because having that ability to easily create and customize statements and reports fast is really going to free up your finance team. And then when you put the numbers in the hands of all of your stakeholders, it's going to really improve that transparency and reduce that demand even more. So in addition to time savings and reducing the demand and freeing up time for your finance team and really giving them all of that time back to do strategic work, we're also going to be putting the power into the hands of those users and doing it in a way that they're all looking in the single source of truth. So everyone has access to the information that they need so they can make faster decisions and more timely decisions more quickly in that way. And lastly, one of the great benefits is that it helps to reduce that burden of just moving between systems and spreadsheets and more of an integrated dynamic tool. And so before we head over to John, I just want to pause for a second and see if we have any questions coming in from the group.
We do. Hold on just a second here. I've got a bunch of screens open. I apologize and appreciate everyone's patience and waiting. Yes, two-part question. First question is, how does sharing work? And also, how do you share with users that are not listed as users in the database?
Yeah, so I know when John gets into the demo, he is definitely going to show the sharing aspect of Phocas and how easy it is to do that across different departments, organizations, and control their views. So we'll definitely, I don't want to steal John's thunder, so I'll definitely allow him to show that throughout the demo as well. Any other questions, Gloria?
That's it right now. I'm just plugged into chat that if anyone had any questions, to remind them to put them in the Q&A bubble. And I'm also keeping a watchful eye on your chat window.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Well, I will hand it over to John, and he can go ahead and show you the real meat and potatoes of the modern approach to financial reporting.
Thanks, Courtney. Hi, everyone. My name's John Sefton. It's a pleasure to meet with everyone today. I love the TUG user group. It's a shame we weren't able to meet this year, but I'm glad we're able to get together today. So my name's John. I'm a solution consultant here at Phocas Software, where I started off for several years implementing customers on Phocas. And SX.e is one of my favorite systems to work with. We have a really nice pre-built solution for SX.e. So we've worked with lots and lots of customers, listened to what they're asking for, and what I have on my screen here is the content that we have pre-built for SX.e. But the content's just really the beginning. Phocas as a platform is designed to make working with data easy. So traditionally, we provided solutions for sales, purchasing, inventory, AR, AP, and general ledger. Recently, we've introduced our financial statements product that lets you not only design and consolidate your financials, but also it lets you elevate your financial data behind static spreadsheet-based reporting and take you into the realm of dynamic and actionable data analytics. So I'm going to jump right into our financial statements product, and that's where I'm going to start, and I'm going to show how our financial statements product works. And then on the back end of this presentation, I'll be getting into the budgeting, forecasting, and planning module. So those of you who have not seen Phocas before, it's all going to start with these dimensions down the left-hand side. This is really the core of the product, where I could be looking at sales information, I could be looking at purchasing, inventory, lots of other types of data, but in this environment, I'm looking at GL transactions to your general ledger. So each one of these, all of these numbers you see represent summarized totals of your GL postings in any given period. And I can look at these totals by any of these dimensions on the left-hand side. This is how you run a report in Phocas. I just come in here, I click a button, and I'm going to get totals by period for each one of my items. So right now I'm looking at postings from 3 separate countries, all consolidated into a single view. So when I look at these accounts, I'm looking at all 3 of those countries. But if I want to, I could maybe select the US, focus on that, then come to account and see postings just for my US business. So just in a few seconds there, I was able to run a report focused specifically on one of my areas of my business. And using native Phocas functionality, I can switch to variance mode where I can compare this year to last year, and I can start to get an idea of what's changing in my business. And I might want to see that by account, I might want to see it by category, or any other dimension that I have here, maybe by territory. So that's just native Phocas functionality. If I was in the sales database, my purchasing database, it would work the same way. So once you've learned one database, you're going to be able to use another. But what we've done is we've built upon our existing data analytics technology. We've built in our financial statements tool. So if I come to my summary button here, you're going to notice that I have a view that looks like a P&L, where if I were to expand, let's say, operating expenses, I'm going to see all of my operating expenses grouped under that category. Up in my mode button, you'll notice I have a profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow, and trial balance, where these other 2 are custom P&L and balance sheets that I created using our statements tool. And the statements tool is a big part of what I'm going to show you today. The statement tool is going to allow me to do a few different things. One, it's going to allow me to create these categories: operating expenses, sales, COGS, etc. After I create these categories, it's going to allow me to map accounts to these categories. So if I come to my account button, I'm focused on operating expenses. I see all my operating expense accounts. In addition to creating these categories and assigning the accounts, I also have the ability to edit or create new financial statements. So I might have a P&L for my ownership. I might have another P&L for my branch managers, and maybe another yet for, let's say, my board of directors. I can have multiple versions of a financial statement depending on what my needs are. So let's jump into that statements tool and see how that works. Here, you'll recognize the values that I saw in my mode dropdown, my different statements, where I can create a new statement or I can edit an existing statement. In this example, let's just go ahead and edit my profit and loss. Here, I'm presented with my form builder. And in this, I can control how I want to lay things out. I can create a new group, like you see here for sales and sales other, or a calculation, like you see here for net sales, which is using variables from my groups. So this screen here was designed for accountants, controllers, CFOs, business users. This used to be a very technical task for me to set this up. It would take me days and days of effort. And Phocas worked really hard to develop a tool that makes it easy for CFOs to do this type of work. So after I've created all my groups and calculations and I've laid it out the way I want, then I'm going to come to my accounts tab where I'm going to be greeted with my chart of accounts. And this is where I'm going to do all my mapping. So I have an interface that makes it really easy for me to search based on code or by account name, or I can add in a range of accounts. Maybe I want to update a range of accounts. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select whatever accounts that I want to categorize, and from my drop down, I'm going to have the groups that were available to me on my statement tab. So when I set up the layout of my P&L, I set up all those groups. That's what's available here for me to assign to accounts. So I'm going to have a task initially during implementation to make sure all of these accounts are mapped at the top level. Now over here are some special columns. If I click on this green plus sign, it's going to allow me to create a new dimension. And from that, I am then going to be able to edit in and put in my own values. So here I've added a territory dimension, and I'm going through and I'm assigning values to each one of my accounts, allowing me to further categorize my accounts from my top level P&L categories all the way down to territories and subgroups and other ways that I can categorize my accounts so I can make it easier for it to understand. So I could come in here. This is a free form field. Maybe I want to make this one my credit department. So you can see I've updated that territory with the word credit. Once I've gone through and I've categorized all my accounts, I'm going to go ahead and save and then close. And it's going to tell me, hey, you've made changes to your database. In order for us to materialize those changes, you need to rebuild the database. So I'll go ahead and click yes, and that's going to rebuild in the background. And in the meantime, I can keep working with the product, but I might, and when it's done, it's going to notify me that it is done and prompt me to refresh my browser. So that was a kind of a quick overview of how to create your financial statements, how to create categories and assign those categories to your accounts so they fall in the right area of
We've had a momentary technical difficulty. John, can you unmute yourself, please? So we can retrieve your audio. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me okay? My phone is connected.
Yep, can hear you fine now.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. All right, so now that I'm on my, I've categorized all my accounts. I've got my P&L set up the way that I'd like to see it. Now let's look at some of the things that we can do with our P&L. First of all, at a user level, I can set up a restriction where a user might only see specific information. So maybe I'm only allowed to see information from the US line of business. So if I were to set up a user restriction, it would automatically filter this view where that's all they would see is the US. So using that data restriction, everybody can use the same database, the same dashboard, the same favorites, but they're only going to see their view of the report that they're allowed to see. So it helps with version control, if you will, where everybody's going to be able to access the same data, but only get their own view. Okay, so right now I'm looking at my P&L. I'm looking at a consolidated view of my business. This is all of my locations. But on my country dimension, which could be branch or territory, I'm going to go ahead and select the US business and focus, and then come to my summary button. So now I'm looking at a P&L just for my US business, where if I were to deselect country, I'm going to go back to a consolidated view of all my locations. The columns that I'm seeing here, I can control. So right now I'm seeing previous, stream, which is my budget, and then variance columns over here to the right. So maybe I want to turn those off so I can just get a clean view of it. And I have the option, if I wanted to include periods where I can see my period totals for each of my periods. And that's driven by my date selection here. There's a number of ways that I can also view this. My database build is done, so I'm refreshing. I can view it by country. So here I will select my 3 countries and I'm gonna hit matrix, which is a really easy way to pivot my data, my rows to columns. And now if I go back to my summary button, I'm gonna get a view of not only my total, but also from each country over here, Australia, UK, and the US. And I'll go back and turn those other columns off so we can get a real clean view of that. Now, if you recall, I talked about my custom category types, where I might want to see my marketing accounts grouped together. So if we look, I have quite a few marketing accounts sprinkled through this list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, drag subgroup. And now if I expand, I'm going to see things grouped by subgroup. So remember, this is a free form way of grouping your accounts together. So now if I expand marketing, I'm going to see all those marketing accounts listed. And there's quite a few of them. But maybe I want to take it another level. Maybe I want to see it also by territory. So I can drag that up. Now, if I expand that, I'm going to be able to see marketing broken out by territory and by country. So there's a lot of flexibility in the way that we can lay this out. Now, I'm keeping an eye on time. I know we still have budgeting and forecasting to cover. Quite a bit more I could show you, but hopefully that's a good teaser. And hopefully you can realize that it's going to not only make creating your financial statements, your P&L, your balance sheets, it's going to make it easier to create and maintain, but it's also going to transform the way that people analyze that information by being able to get really easy access to this actionable business intelligence tool. So with that, Courtney, I'll pass it back over to you to set us up for our next section.
John, I did have a question that populated from Jeff Howard. He says, is there a limit to the number of GL accounts that can be loaded into Phocas?
There's not a limit inside the application. There's probably a theoretical limit, in the millions, if not more. So for practicality, no, there's not a limit.
Okay, great. Thanks. Go ahead and carry on, folks.
Wonderful. Thanks, John, for sharing. That was wonderful. So now that we've kind of seen you how the building of the financial statements works and how you can easily give power to everybody in your business who needs access to the financial information, access to it, we wanted to talk a little bit about a new enhancement and show you how you can really transform the budgeting and forecasting aspect of your business as well. And so we know as business owners and workers, we build and manage budgets can be really manual and long and tedious. I've sat through quite a few budget processes looking for a better way to do it. Because in the budgeting process, typically what happens is the finance team is chasing people across the business. There's multiple versions. There's a lot of manual work from the finance side, so copying formulas and formats and emailing spreadsheets and then giving those to the line of business in the traditional method. And then the line of business of the department heads, they review that information, then they send it back to finance, and there's a lot of back and forth. And so it's a really disconnected process. It's really static. It doesn't really allow for a lot of changes or iterations. And once it's set and it's published, being able to adjust it and make changes beyond that is practically impossible. And so we don't even really talk about that today in businesses because the way the budgeting and forecasting process is set up. And I've always found that in budgeting and forecasting in a process like this, where there are so many people involved, that using spreadsheets and Excel and a method that is very, very limited. So there's really no workflow capabilities. There's no automated tracking. And it really sets us up for potential errors when you have a lot of people in the process like it needs to be for budgeting and forecasting. And so at Phocas, we started to think there really has to be a better way to do this. And finding a way for business owners to update forecasts continually and easily if they need to adjust and adapt for their business as things change, like we saw in this past year, or in a way that the numbers can be presented in a format that's easier to understand, kind of like we just saw here with the financial statements. And most importantly, from a finance side, a way that they can do a little bit less chasing, or maybe even a lot more less chasing for budgets, and getting people more involved and more collaborative in the process. And that's really what we're wanting to achieve with a modern approach to budgeting and forecasting, and the tool that we're going to show you here today. It's more dynamic, it's more streamlined, it's more efficient. And so one of my favorite things about this process to budgeting and forecasting, which is just a more continuous loop that really puts the Office of Finance and the department heads all together in this continuous process, is it really improves the collaboration and the transparency across the business into the budgeting and forecasting process. And so the process we're going to show you today, it's workflow based. So it removes the needs for that Excel sending back and forth, where there's some of that potential for error. And with the simple and intuitive workflows, the worksheets are more collaborative, and it really starts to bring people in more easily, as you'll see through this process, into the budgeting and forecasting plan. So with that, I'm going to throw it back over to John one last time so he can really show you how this process works and how it can simplify things for your business.
All right. Thanks, Courtney. Okay, our budgeting and forecasting is designed to make the budgeting process easier, more streamlined, more accessible to users involved in the budgeting process. We want to eliminate the headaches of managing all those spreadsheets by maintaining multiple files, multiple versions, without really any audit trails or security in place. So we built our budgeting and forecasting tool to resemble Excel quite a bit. You know, everybody's an expert at Excel. So we've tried to keep a lot of the core features of Excel, but make it all digital, where everybody can be working on the same data set at the same time. So I'm going to reset my financial statements tool here. And I want to point out on my variance stream here is a budget, okay? And this budget is created in our budgeting and forecasting tool and then published back to your financial statements. You can have multiple versions of a budget. I might have my budget from January, and then maybe I hire some new people or I lose people and I want to rebudget in March or throughout the year. You're going to be able to easily do that with Phocas budgeting and forecasting. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come up here, and right under my statements tool is my budget and forecast tool. Creating a new budget is easy. I'm going to click new workbook. I'm going to give it a name. And that's going to ask me what database I'm basing it off of. And I'm going to base it off my financial statements database. And I'm going to base it off my base profit and loss. Remember, I can have multiple profit and loss. I'm going to base it off of this one. I am logged in as the Phocas user right now, so I'll be the owner. And I have the ability to add other people as owners to the or budget administrators to help me with the process if that's something I wanted to do. Now, by default, I'm going to be budgeting at the account level, but I might want to add in another category to make it easier for me to manage the budgeting process. I might have thousands and thousands of accounts, so I need to make that a little bit easier by adding in a subgroup. So I'm going to click next. I'm going to base my budget based off months, but I have a lot of flexibility with that. If I want to do it in fiscal periods or quarters, I can do that. Now I'm going to do it from January 2021 to December 21. And here's where you start to see the benefit of having your financial statements and budgeting and forecasting tool built on top of your BI tool, is that we have all your data. So I can populate the initial budget with my actuals from last year, or just with zeros as blank. Now that I've done all that, I'm going to go ahead and save and finish. And now I've begun the budgeting process. All right. So now once it loads, you can see that it looks just like my P&L. All of the different categories I had involved are available there, including marketing and all of that. That's my subgroup that I added. And today I want to work on my phone expenses for next year. And I know that my IT manager generally takes care of that for me. So I want to involve the IT manager in the budgeting process to put his numbers in for what he expects our landlines and mobile phones to cost next year. So I can very easily search for utilities, and that's where I'm going to find my telephones, landlines, and mobile phones. I want you to notice if it's yellow, that means I can edit this. And if it's not, it means I can't. So I'm going to leave that to the IT manager though. There's a workflow that we're going to start with. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to be able to assign this to my IT manager. And I want to put a note in and I want to say, hey, don't forget the new hires starting in April. Oops, I haven't assigned it. Okay, I've assigned both of these accounts to my IT manager. Notice it's white now. I cannot edit that, but I can edit these. So you're starting to see the version control come into place and the security where I cannot edit something that's been assigned to somebody else. All right, I have another browser open where I'm logged in as the IT manager. Let's take a look at what it looks like for him. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to refresh my browser, and I'm going to see on my home screen that I have 2 tasks. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to launch me into the budget. Notice up here, I have an indicator that I have 2 tasks, and it's telling me that it's the mobile and landline. So I could click on this, and it'll take me right to it. Notice up here, I can't see any sales information. I can't see any profit information because I don't have access to that data. So that's where the security is starting to kick in, where you can imagine multiple people working on the same spreadsheet, but they can only see the accounts that I want them to see. All right, for my landlines, I know that I've negotiated a new contract and it's going to be $50,000 for the year. So I could go in here and enter in a number for each month. So something like $4,500. I could take that and then enter that number. I can right click and copy it forward and I can see that number across the year. Or I want to come in here and take my 50,000 and I want to spread it evenly. Okay, and you'll see a little formula indicator, 50,000 divided by 12 for each one of my months. What I'm about to show you next, though, is a really neat feature, is that if I can right click on this and go to spread, right now it's even, but maybe I want to base it on last year's actuals. So it might fluctuate from month to month. So I'm going to do based on last year's actuals, apply. And now if I look at my formula, it's actually taking that 50,000 and giving a weighted amount for each month based on what happened last year. And you can use that functionality all throughout the budget. So maybe if I were budgeting for sales, I might put in a new quota, but I want it might be seasonal. So I'm going to base that budget based on last year's numbers. All right. With cell phones, I want to do it a little bit different. I am actually going to use a function called a sum line because I have to do a little bit of math and I also want to show my reasoning behind my budget. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple sum lines. And the first one is for phone plan. okay? And I know right now it's $2,200 a month. And so I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna right click and copy that forward. But don't forget, we're hiring those new people in April. So from April on, it's 2,500. The second part is accessories. And I'm making a bulk buy that the phone vendor is going to let me make payments on it. So it's at $10,000 worth of equipment, but I'm going to be able to pay for that spread out through the year. So you can see how that's done. And then if I roll that up, I'm going to see these numbers for mobile. I can see the comment here, and I can expand and see the detail of it. So when I sign this back to the budget owner, they're going to be able to see my logic behind the amount I put in for the mobile telephones. So, and I have the ability here to actually compare it to last year's actuals, right? So I can click on my comparison button and I can see last year's numbers. So it's really nice when you're in your budget, you're creating your budget, instead of having to go to another spreadsheet and reference what that might have been to make sure fact check or sanity check the numbers you put in. You can see that right within your financial statement budgeting tool because it's built upon your BI tool. All right, now that I feel good about this, I'm going to go ahead and assign this back to Phocas. So the budget owner here. So for my landlines, renegotiated. I can put in a little blurb about that, and then I'm gonna submit that back to Phocas. And then the next one also, please see the breakout of the budget information and submit that back to Phocas. So now, me as the IT manager, I don't have any tasks left. You can see up in the top right corner, I've completed my part of the budget. So now hopping back over to where Phocas is logged in, I'm going to go back to my home screen. And I'm going to get a notification that I now have 2 tasks. So as the budget owner, now I'm going back into the budget. And I'll find my tasks. And I'm able to see that I have 2 waiting for me to approve. I can see the comments that were added. I can expand and see the sum line so I can see where this number came from. And I even have the ability, if I right click on it, I can go to the workflow history and follow everything that budget line did. Now I feel good about this, so I'm going to click on the workflow button, accept it. And if it's done, I can mark it complete. Right? So ultimately, that's what we're looking for, is all of our items to be complete. Once all of my accounts have been completed and everything's a green checkbox, that's where I have the ability to then publish it back to my financial statements tool, where it'll show up as a stream. So I can publish this. I won't do that part of it right now. And then when I go back into it, sorry, right here. Once I publish it back and then I need to rebuild the database again, I'm going to have a new variant stream called TUG 2021 that I can compare my current to my budget. That's just a brief overview of some of the core features of our new budgeted tool. There's a lot more I can show you, how we can use formulas and headcount drivers to automate the budgeting process. Hopefully you've been able to see how much easier budgeting can be with budgeting and forecasting, break out of that spreadsheet-based budgeting, and can help you control the budget process with simpler, streamlined tools, ensuring you're looking at the correct version with full version and security controls. So with that, I'd like to pass it back to Courtney for our next steps.
Thank you, John. That was great. So I think we could all see the power in a tool like this and how collaborative and how it really gets you out of that Excel headache of the budgeting and forecasting process, and how overall it really creates a modern tool for your business. And so, Gloria, I think I saw another question or so come in towards the end of the session here. So we'll go ahead and take those.
Yeah, we actually have a few. Number one, can the CFO make changes to the budgeted numbers that had been input by employees?
Absolutely. The budget owner is gonna have full control over it. They can change it or they can reject it, send it back to them. You can approve or deny it, but if they didn't want to do that, they could just override it. The budget owner can do that.
Great. Another question, can you grant access to the financial statement without allowing full access to the GL database?
There is quite a bit of control over what users can and can't do and what they can and can't see. So they will be able to go into the GL database. You can filter it so they can only see what you want. And also you can put financial statements on a dashboard as well. So there's a lot of ability to control what a user sees.
That ties into the next question, which is how restrictive can permissions be?
All the way down to the account level. So I can, maybe if like the IT manager in that example could only see my utilities. That was actually at a group level. I can all the way go down to specific accounts that's all that I want them to see in the budget.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. I think that concludes the number of questions that we have. And I'm going to see if there's any last minute questions. Courtney, are you seeing anything else there?
I'm not seeing any other questions coming in there.
Okay. Well, on that note, what I'd like to do is, number one, thank everyone else who's hung in there with us. It's 2:47. We're almost at the 50-minute mark. Thank you so much for logging on with us today. John and Courtney, thank you as always for the great content that you present. Our next webinar will be this Friday with Brent Grover, M&A Authority. So please be sure to register for this expert session. You should have received it in your inbox, and it has also been posted to the All Members Forum. So TUG members, just a quick reminder, if you still have additional questions, post them to the TUG members only forum on the webinar board or on the ERP board for a quick response or to continue the ongoing dialogue. And for those of you who are not yet members, please visit theusergroup.org, www.theusergroup.org, and join us today. And as they say, folks, in Hollywood, that's a wrap.